So Astro Pads are high-quality buffing pads that have been impregnated with a lot of tiny, tiny diamonds. And the reason that those diamonds are impregnated on that pad is to give an abrasive surface that allows you, or one, to clean a floor mechanically as opposed to using chemicals or cleansing agents. And the reason why that's important is that you can incorporate into your daily cleaning routine the use of a tool, the Astro Pad, that allows you to get the cleaning work that you otherwise have to use harsh chemicals potentially or environmentally harmful chemicals, get it done without the use of those chemicals. And that's what we refer to as a mechanical cleaning or a mechanical shine that results from the use of Astro Pads. So Astro Pads can be used to replace the tools that you use on a day-to-day basis for your cleaning needs. So suppose you use a brush on an auto scrubber, or you use a blue pad on a swing machine. The Astro Pad replaces those and becomes part of your daily maintenance. But the important part to recognize is where can you use them. And so there are certain places you can use them, and there are certain places you should not use them. So the places you can generally use them are places like floors like a bare polished concrete, or terrazzo, or marble, or other calcitic stone, limestone or travertine. Some people even use it on granite. It's questionable whether or not it's as effective because the granite is so hard. But certainly on concrete, terrazzo, and calcitic stones, it's a great place to use them. The places you should not use them are as follows. Do not use them on wood because you will scratch the wood. Do not use it on ceramic or porcelain surfaces. Again, because those are like glass and diamonds scratch glass, you will end up with a floor that will look terrible. So do not use it on porcelain or ceramic. And do not use it on floors that have a topical sealer, wax or something else. Because again, you will scratch that surface and you'll cause more damage than you will create cleanliness. So really you want to use it in places that don't have a topical coating, that are concrete or some kind of calcitic stone. There are 5 main benefits of using the Astro Pads. One is that once you've removed wax, because this replaces the whole need to wax, it's faster and cheaper. Because you don't need to strip the wax, replace the wax on a periodic basis. Instead, you just use the Astro Pads to keep your typically waxed floor clean. The second benefit is that it's great for the environment. Because again, you're not using harmful stripper, you're not putting wax down on the floor, so it's a lot less use of chemicals that you really don't want to have in our waterways and in our environment. The third benefit of using Astro Pads is that they're economical. They last a really long time. Typically, you're looking at an Astro Pad lasting you maybe 10,000 square feet. Some people go as far as saying 20, 30, 40,000 square feet. So it really depends on the nature of the floor, but they last a very long time and therefore very economical. The fourth benefit of using the Astro Pads is that you don't really need specialized tools. You're using the tools that you use on an everyday basis, whether it's an auto scrubber or whether it's a swing machine. You can get Astro Pads for either, and you don't need specialized tools. And they run off a typical dry block. So you're really using a dry block that you already have, a pad holder, and therefore there's no extra need for additional tools. And the fifth benefit of using the Astro Pads is it takes away the need for the periodic maintenance that comes with the stripping and waxing process. So if you eliminate that altogether, you're really just doing your day-to-day cleaning and taking care of the floor as you go. So as I mentioned, Astro Pads really are versatile, and one of the benefits we mentioned was that you can pretty much use any machine that you already have to drive the Astro Pads. And most places will use either an auto scrubber or a swing machine to do their day-to-day cleaning. And Astro Pads fit on either of those. They come in a variety of sizes and grit levels. So for example, you can get something as small as a 5-inch but it goes as big as a 27-inch. And you can fit them on pretty much any size of auto scrubber or any size of swing machine to do your work. And those are generally the two machines you'd use them on. You could also use them on a hand grinder. So if you're doing detailed work, let's say it's a staircase, or you're working in a corner, you can also fit Astro Pads onto a hand grinder, and it allows you to do the same kind of maintenance work. Well, when then selecting the Astro Pad, which pretty much, we carry a particular brand, we call them Astro Pads, but the diamond impregnated pads or dips is what they're generally referred to, come in a variety of grit levels. So starting from about a grit level of 200, which is fairly aggressive, all the way to about 6,000, which is the very fine polishing type of grit level that you have available to you. And really, the way you select these is by determining first what the condition of the floor is. So if the floor that you're working on is highly scratched and needs the extra TLC, you might start at a lower grit, maybe a 400 grit or an 800 grit. If the floor is in generally good condition, you might start at a higher grit level, maybe like a 1500 grit. And then the second part is what kind of a finish do you want at the end. Some people like a honed finish. A honed finish is kind of like what we call a matte finish. So an 800 grit, maybe a 1500 grit would be enough. But some people like a more polished or reflective look, and you might need to go up to a 3000 or a 6000 grit. So a lot of the selection depends on the condition of the floor that you start with and the condition you want it to be in the end. And the best part about this is you don't have to do it all at one shot. You can spend a couple of weeks at one grit level doing your day-to-day maintenance, and then if you want it a little bit more polished, you take the next grit level and use that for a couple of weeks. And if you hit the kind of polish level you like, you stay there and keep doing it with that same grit level on a regular basis. Using weights is something that you have to be careful about with Astro Pads. The more pressure you put on it, the faster you wear them out, but you're also improving the efficiency of your work. However, I would recommend to anybody who's considering putting weights is to try without weights first. If they find that they're not getting as effective a solution, you might try one weight, but maximum one weight, because it counters the productivity of the pad itself. So I get asked the question sometimes, Astro Pads, or can Astro Pads replace the resin diamonds that were used for restoring floors? And I'd say to them, no. There are really separate functions or separate purposes of these two different tools. The resin bonded diamonds or metal bonded diamonds are really used to restore a floor. It's more like a project. You've got a floor that's in pretty bad condition. There's a goal you have. The resin and metal bonded diamonds allow you to get from the condition that it's in to the condition you want in a very quick manner. The Astro Pads, on the other hand, are more of a maintenance pad. So they'll bring your luster up 1 notch or 2 notches through regular use. But they're not really project type tools. You can't just use them once, otherwise you'll destroy them and it'll take you forever. So you're using them as part of your day-to-day cleaning to slowly bring up the luster to the level you want. Whereas resin diamonds or metal bonded diamonds actually do that work very quickly, but they're more expensive and take a lot more specialized tooling to get done. Another question we get asked sometimes is, do we use Astro Pads wet or dry? We normally recommend using them wet because that prolongs the life of the Astro Pad, but you are able to use them dry as well. So they can be used wet or dry. We believe wet will give you the better outcome in the long run, especially if you're using them in a maintenance type procedure. Pro tip number 1. When you start using Astro Pads, you have to make sure that the floor that you're working on is cleaned of all topical applications. So it doesn't have to be clean because the whole purpose is you're cleaning it, but really you don't want to use it on some kind of a topical sealer like wax or other sealers because you will scratch the surface, you'll damage the Astro Pads. So what you really want to do is the first time only, you want to remove those topical sealers. So if it's wax, you put your stripper down, make sure you take all the wax off, mop it, clean it so there's no chemical residue, and then use the Astro Pad. And then after that, you don't have to go back to stripping because there's no wax, and you keep going with the Astro Pad. Similarly, if you've got some kind of other sealer, remove it before you use the Astro Pad. Pro tip number 2, respect the dot or trust the dot. There are dots on the Astro Pads, and these dots are wear indicators. And the reason why we have them here is when these dots disappear, it means that this pad has now lived its useful life. And while we may be tempted to keep using it because we've spent money on buying this, I say to you, rely on these dots to tell you when it's time to get a new Astro Pad. They're not very expensive, and it's really not worth your while to try and scrounge every little bit out of this, because you'll just mean you have to work harder in the end and waste a lot of time. So because it won't be as effective. So trust the dot. So a third pro tip. You know how we said that the selection of your Astro Pad grit level will depend on the condition of the floor? Well, one thing you should note is that if the floor is badly scratched, then perhaps Astro Pads are not the right solution to begin with. Right? You might want to use resin diamonds, so resin bonded diamonds, maybe going down to 100 or 200 grit, and using those first to pull out some of the bigger scratches and make the floor consistent before you switch over to using Astro Pads. So Astro Pads are great if you're already in a good condition and you want to maintain or slightly improve it. But if the floor is not in a good condition, Astro Pads are probably not the right solution for you. So probably want to start off with resin bonded diamonds and then graduate yourself up to Astro Pads at around the 800 grit mark, and then keep using those to polish and maintain the floor.